All right, good afternoon, everyone. This meeting is called to order. Courtney, if you could please call the roll.
Chair Moss,
Present.
Director Sergich,
Here.
and Director Velasquez.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Excellent. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for your continued work on bringing the HDFC committee to reality. Really appreciate all the partnership and everything that's gone into to this moment. I wanted to begin by acknowledging that it is the first day of our Executive Director for HDFC, Jonathan Klein, who's joining us today in person. Jonathan, really excited to bring you on board. Your depth of experience is going to be really, really important for this work ahead. So really excited to welcome you into your new role. Just for everyone's sake, July 1st is fast approaching. It is our official reorganization date when BCSH will dissolve and our California Housing and Homelessness Agency will come into fruition, as well as our Business Consumer Services Agency. So really excited about that work, and wanted to just take a moment to talk a little bit about what we're going to be discussing today. Jonathan's going to start us off with a discussion on a draft outline for his first 100 days in the work, which we're really excited to hear about. And then the committee will be asked to approve our timeline recommendations for the consolidated application and the aligned compliance monitoring, which we discussed at our very first meeting. These processes will really be the foundation of how we do this work as a committee. So very excited about that with my colleagues here. And then finally, we'll review any and potentially approved the meeting calendar for 2026. And with that, I'd love to get started on our first item. I'll turn it over to you, Jonathan. Or
No,
kidding, joking. Thank you, team. Just we need to approve our minutes from our May 26th meeting. And they should be included in your packet. Are there any corrections to the minutes, colleagues?
Nope.
All right. No vote needed, just automatic approval? Consensus? Good, good. All right, the minutes are approved as presented by unanimous consent. So thank you. No corrections are made, and we will move forward to item 3, the discussion of our draft outline for HDFC work plan for the first 100 days. I'll now invite Jonathan to join us.
Thank you, Chair Moss, and committee members. I have a few brief introductory comments before we begin the committee's discussion of the draft work plan outline. Perhaps the two most basic questions are why this and why now? Why a 100-day work plan, and why present it at this very early stage of the committee's second meeting and the executive director's first day? So why now? I'm asking for a discussion by the committee today for many reasons. First, there is no meeting scheduled in July. Getting the committee's feedback, even on this preliminary document, will inform our work in advance of the August 12th meeting, when we aim to bring you a detailed plan for the first 100 days that will take us into October. At that time, we will also bring you an outline at that August meeting of a work plan that goes out to 2026 year end. But I did not want to let today's meeting pass without getting your input, even on this preliminary draft. So why this? This is not a fully developed strategic plan. It's not a draft of a strategic plan. It's not even a final outline of a strategic plan. It's a draft outline. This work plan will lay the groundwork for the plan that we will bring you in August. In understanding the document, I think it may be useful to think about the past, the present, and the future. Over the past several years, work has been done by the state team, stakeholders, and others that's laid a foundation for HDFC. It gives us the freedom to focus on execution and implementation, since so much of the groundwork has been put in place. For example, the goals in the work plan that you will review today grow directly from the thinking of the 519 Working Group and others. The plan also reflects the vision adopted by the Executive Committee last month: homes that Californians can afford, communities where they can thrive. So that's the past. Now on to the present. The work plan has a 100-day focus. The reason for that is to foster a sense of urgency. We are in the grip of an affordable housing crisis. The mission statement adopted by this committee last month said that HDFC's mission is to alleviate that crisis by making California's housing finance system simpler, faster, and more transparent. And we need to be about that work right now. The plan articulates 4 goals consistent with the work done to date: coordinate multifamily housing finance, accelerate processes from application to conversion, measure progress to achieve continuous improvement, and enhance trust and transparency. The plan also includes objectives for achieving all of those goals. Finally, as we look to the future beyond this 100-day scope, the plan will be our compass. I assure you this is not a document that will sit on a shelf somewhere. It will absolutely guide our work. With that context, allow me to point you to a cover memo in the packet for this agenda item. It is a memorandum from me to the committee. There are discussion questions at the bottom of that one-page memo. And these are the topics I'm hoping we might be able to cover in whatever depth the committee so chooses. Are the plan's priorities correct? Are we focused on the right things? Are the goals right? Do the objectives enable the achievement of the goals? Is the timing right? Will accomplishing what is contemplated in the plan meet your metrics of success? And obviously, only you can answer that question in terms of where you would hope we are at in that 100-day framework by October. Chair Moss, I'm happy to either walk the committee through the 5-page plan at a high level now, or go straight to the committee's comments and questions.
Walk through, please.
Okay, we'll do a
Thank you.
walkthrough. Great, thank you very much. So there is it's attachment 3A in your packet, discussion draft, work plan outline. There is an executive summary which covers much of what I just spoke with you about. I won't reiterate it in the interest of time. Please do note again the mission and vision. To alleviate California's affordable housing crisis, HDFC creates affordable homes by making California's housing finance system simpler, faster, and more transparent. The vision: homes that Californians can afford, communities where they can thrive, values of integrity, respect, responsiveness, and diligence. There is then a summary of the situational analysis, the environment in which we're working, opportunities and challenges faced by HDFC, the need for continuous stakeholder engagement, and then in section 6, goals and objectives to be achieved in the first 100 days, and this is in many ways the heart of the plan. I'm going to slow down my pace here a little bit to walk through goal number 1, coordinate multifamily housing finance, and then objectives attached to each goal. Just as a reminder here, the goals are longer term. They will probably not evolve all that much, at least in the initial phase of HDFC. The objectives in this plan are things that HDFC will aim to accomplish in this first 100-day framework. So for example, goal number 1, coordinate multifamily affordable housing finance. Guidelines for the consolidated programs, obviously mission-critical work that is already well underway. A unified calendar, something we've discussed a lot. Within this 100-day framework, we aim to have the executive committee adopt a unified calendar, single application, again, get to a point where we at least have a creation of a draft that we can discuss. Application portal, the goal here is to get to at least a test stage for an application portal within the 100-day framework, and then a coordinated review process, again, consolidating these programs so that there is a coordinated review process. Goal number 2, accelerate processes from application to conversion. You'll note the first objective here is technical assistance. There is much time that is taken with a back and forth with applicants. If we can aim to do more front-end technical assistance to minimize that, it should expedite our processes across the board. Tracking, again, how do we measure the fact that we're actually accelerating the processes? we need to have that tracking system in place. The calendar, we've already talked about. And then there's a note here about bottlenecks under Goal 2. The real aim of this process, this acceleration process, is to determine where there are snags, where are things slowing down. And from my experience in other contexts, what I've often found with those bottlenecks is people are working hard to do the right thing, but they need more support, they need more training, they need more resources. There's a reason why those bottlenecks are happening, and what we want to do is do the analysis, identify where they are, get people the help that they need so that we can break through those bottlenecks and smooth the road. Goal number 3, measure progress to achieve continuous improvement. Assemble a team to create a dashboard that tracks applications from submittal through review, funding, and conversion. Benchmarking early, we want to try to note our progress as soon as we can. And then finally, goal number 4, enhancing trust and transparency. Stakeholder engagement is clearly a continuous process, never a one and done. These meetings are obviously an important component of that, but we want to look for other avenues to continuously engage with the stakeholder community. We want to track the work plan's progress publicly, online, and also improve compliance monitoring as part of that enhancement process. Lastly, I'll just point out, when we come back in August, we envision having an action plan for you that would lay out deadlines, dates. I'm already working on a responsibility matrix in terms of who will take lead on various initiatives, and also come back with a discussion about how resources will be deployed so that we can follow this plan. And we will also come back with another plan to get us out to the end of the year. I'll stop there and be happy to take your questions and comments.
Great. Thank you so much. Colleagues, questions, comments from the committee?
Well, first of all, I want to express how excited I am that you're on board, and that the work that you've already put together really shows sort of the direction we're heading and the possibilities that we have in front of us. And so this plan is a great start for that. I am looking forward to really, as you dig in a little more with what's out there in August, coming back and seeing the details. One of my the short-term questions, I guess, is with the staffing levels that you have. Do you think you have the ability to sort of make a lot of progress in the short run to get this stuff together?
Yes, I think the staffing levels are adequate. We're working actively on recruiting candidates and filling positions. And I believe, especially with some of the shared resources, that we could make the progress that we need to make. There is absolutely a balancing act. We want to fill positions quickly, but also thoughtfully. And so we will move forward with filling those positions as quickly as we can, but making sure that we've got folks committed to the mission.
Thank you. I am going to join Secretary and Director Sertich in echoing how thrilled we are to have you on board. When I talk to people in the industry, it really, what comes out of those conversations about your appointment is credibility, integrity in the work that Mr. Klein, you've done in housing finance in the state. So we're really thrilled to have someone with such a great expertise and, again, credibility in this position. So thank you for that. And regarding the plan, were you able to participate? Have you participated at all in the 519 working group? Have you joined any of those meetings? Have you heard about how those meetings are going?
Yes, well, I have not joined them directly. I have profited enormously from the output of the 519 work group, and certainly have talked closely with colleagues who are very actively involved. And the plan is absolutely grounded in a lot of the high-quality work that was done in terms of thinking about goals and what we should be focused on.
From what you've heard from people who have participated, I mean, part of the guidelines they're so critical. They're tied to the progress that we are making in the 519 work stream. And so any concern that you've heard, either that you've heard or your own concern about the progress that the work group is making, that we are making towards getting to a point where these guidelines can be at least the first draft, since it's part of your 100-day plan. Any concerns regarding the work of 519 working group in terms of getting to the point of the first draft of the guidelines?
So, yeah, absolutely is a mission-critical focus and something that we need to get really right. And a couple of things specifically that I think help us get there. So the first is that there will be 2 rounds of public comment. We do want, there had been some thinking about getting that first draft out in July. We have discussed about actually getting the first draft out in August to make sure that we're gathering the right input and direction. We may also choose to include some optionality in that draft for stakeholders to comment on in certain areas where we may lay out an option A, option B, option C, and invite people's public comment. So I do think that the guidelines will be very well informed by the expertise in the community. I do think that our endeavor here is not to get to a final in August, but again, to be able to have that second round in October by the time, you know, this 100-day period is over. And I do think everyone is highly sensitive to the fact that it's something we must do with great care in terms of making sure that the consequences are what we desire. And I should just finally add that there are a number of folks actively working on parts of those work streams, the scoring, for example, how we're going to think about that. So it is a large undertaking, and I think the timeline, based on what I've learned so far, is reasonable.
Okay, great. And then a second comment I see on your plan in terms of the application portal as part of your goal number 1, and then this pipeline management system. You carefully mentioned, you were careful in just identifying the team that is going to work on that system. I think the words you've chosen are correct, and I say that because I've been 6 years in the state of California. We're great at proposing technology solutions, but implementing them, it's painfully slow. And I think I've actually mentioned this to the secretary in previous occasions. A big part of the credibility of this committee and what we are about to embark on rests in how the technology will work for the industry. And it does say advancement of the application portal. I know they're working, the teams are already working very hard towards that, but I will, just a word of caution, you may want to comment or not about it, this is not a question, but just a word of caution about how execution of these technology solutions in the state sometimes take longer than expected. So just something to be mindful about.
If I may comment quickly, bearing in mind it's still my first day. I do think that I take all your caution quite seriously and with all due respect. I would just make a larger point, which is I think it is essential that we're not overpromising. And I think it will go to the heart of the credibility of HDFC that when we say we're going to do things, we actually do them when we say we're going to do them. And part of the reason why, obviously eager to get the committee's input on this document, but also the next step I'm already starting to take is this responsibility matrix, which is so who's going to do what, who's going to be the lead, who's going to be providing oversight, where are the subject matter experts coming from, and then what are the timelines for getting those things done. Because I think it is, to your point, absolutely critical that when we say we're going to do these things, that they happen, and they happen on time. So we share a lot of the same concerns.
Great.
Maybe just a couple of thoughts. You know, first of all, I think that the goals are right on target in terms of certainly the first 100 days, but also based on all of the engagement we've been doing over the last 2 years to prepare ourselves for the launch of HDFC, it feels like these are in fact the right priorities with the right focus. I am really interested in how we can look at supporting the work of HDFC from an all-government approach. I think it has been really important to this administration that, you know, housing and addressing our housing and homelessness crisis is not just the responsibility of the departments within this new agency or HDFC, but in fact, how can all government support how we do this work better? And so as I was looking at Goal 3 and the objective around the dashboard, I know that many of our departments have done a really good job of providing those kinds of resources to the public. I think HCD has actually done a really good job of making a lot of the information around our programs accessible to the public and digestible to the public. And I think that there are some other examples across state government that could guide how HDFC sets up those dashboards. I don't want your team to start from scratch. I think that there's some ways to build from good models across all of our departments, Cal HFA and others. So just inviting you to really think about how we can utilize best practice in that way so that you can meet the timeline that you're looking at with the 100-day sprint, because I think any way that we can both have accountability and transparency around that data would be really helpful. And then the other comment is about the bottlenecks portion under Goal 2. I think that this is a really important piece for the work, certainly internally as we begin to really streamline and test our goals of efficiency and process, but that we memorialize those things, that it's not just relationship-based, but that we are almost establishing processes that can be transferable as HDFC grows and iterates on the work, that we understand how we solved for the bottlenecks, what are the things that we need to put in place to make sure that they don't happen again, et cetera. And frankly, having that level of transparency with all the teams who are touching the work. So that's something I think just in terms of how we think about change management, cultural evolution of this work, that's going to be something that I think would be really helpful as you move forward. And then lastly, really appreciate the enhanced trust and transparency goal. The objectives around the stakeholder engagement, I think, is really critical to making sure that HDFC's work is responsive to our external stakeholders and partners. And so I'll be really excited to see what you bring back in August about what are the ways that we utilize tables that are already set, opportunities for constructive feedback that's not so onerous on staff, that we create new tables, but that we are maximizing our opportunities to hear from our stakeholders, not just in this public meeting, but across the many ways that we work with our partners. So those are my thoughts. Any other thoughts from the committee?
If I might just quickly.
Please.
Just respond to your comments. The first is that, again, in terms of the bottlenecks, my fundamental assumption is people desperately want to do their jobs better. And so the question is, how do we identify those places where, sort of by our own design and intentionally we are slowing people down? Mm-hmm. And so, and I really want to stress this for everybody, this is not about catching people doing something wrong. It's about figuring out how we can help people do their jobs better. So it's sort of a blame-free zone, if you will, in terms of really understanding where those snags are. And I'm actually really excited about that because it gets people more excited and more motivated about their work. I think in terms of the trust and transparency things, one of the real benefits we have, as you all know very well, is this is an incredibly well-networked community. And so there are a lot of opportunities for us to get out and about, and I want to make sure that maybe we're going to some of the places where we're not expected to be, where we're not expected to show up, to really double down on our efforts to reach out. I'm a great believer in the idea that, you know, good ideas and constructive thoughts can come from anywhere. And so we really want to encourage that input from all corners. Having said that, we need the discipline of this plan because there's a lot of good ideas out there that are completely valid. And I was sharing this earlier today with somebody who said to me, well, you know, businesses die from gluttony, not starvation. You know, oftentimes organizations go under because they try to do too much. And so part of what we're trying to do with this plan is make sure we've got that strategic focus, in part so we can say to people, yes, that's a great idea. Yes, we should do that. But right now, we're going to be focusing on getting the guidelines right, these other things we need to do first to make sure we've laid a strong foundation, and then we can continue with that momentum to go on to other thoughts that come from the community.
That's fantastic. I think that discipline's going to be really important. All right. So we are now going to open it up for public comment. Each speaker will have up to 2 minutes to speak. Total public comment time on this item is limited to 30 minutes. To ensure in-person and remote participation have equal opportunity to speak, we will rotate between our Zoom participants and those in the room. Please avoid repeating comments that have already been made. If a previous speaker has expressed your point, you can simply state that you agree with the previous comments. Courtney, is there anyone who would like to make public comment?
If you'd like to make a comment on this agenda item and you're attending in person, please make a line at the microphone. If you are participating remotely and would like to make a comment, please raise your virtual hand and we will call on you. Okay, not seeing any in person, but we do have some remote commenters. We'll start with Yvette Villa. Please unmute your mic and go ahead with your comment.
Hello, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, so first of all, super excited for you guys. I've been in the industry, the property management, for over 20 years, and it's always nice, you know, in hindsight to say, I was there when that rolled out, or I remember when that happened. I feel like this is a really crucial, critical point that and work that you guys are doing. So thank you for that. I'm excited just to be a part of the audience. The only questions that I have in regards to the plan, and Mr. Klein, you pretty much covered a lot of the areas that I have questions, specific questions for, and I can submit those at a later time. At the moment, the only question I have is in regards to the bottlenecks or will there be any safeguards for emerging developers such as myself who have put a lot of work in and not just in these grants or in these programs. You know, I literally have spent a life's work, property management and advocacy and, you know, veteran work at federal level as well as a federal contractor. Will there be safeguards for those type of, I guess, applicants? Because I'm sure not everybody is going for federal grants and state grants. That's the only question I have.
Thank you for your comment. We will move on to our next participant, Ruby Torralva. If you could please unmute your mic and go ahead with your comment.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, hi. Give me one second. Sorry, good afternoon, Chair Moss and members of the committee. My name is Ruby Torralva. I'm calling. I wanted to give my comment regarding the agenda item 4 to place this committee on formal administrative notice that local compliance is being manipulated to hide fiscal insolvency. We are actively briefing Assemblymember Alexandra Macedo's office on our findings right now. As much as our desire is to fix homelessness, this state needs to stop rushing these half-baked alignment timelines. You need, please, I beg you, and in the most humble way I say it, we need to pause and build a unified automated infrastructure with a real oversight modeled after strict systems like SSI and EDD. You know, those systems have worked, and we continue to make different agencies and different departments that I believe that right now homelessness is not where we keep treating it like if it's an illness, if it's like COVID and it's going to go away. It's not going away. It's not one individual here, one individual there. It's families here and everywhere. And I please, I hope that if you guys continue to do this entity and help the homeless, I'm homeless and we're struggling, and we've never been homeless before, and it is a struggle. It is very, very hard with all the barriers that we continue to face. I ask that please to open something like SSI and EDD. I know that you guys can make it work. I know that we can come up with this. California can come up with a system, where we stick to it and everybody sticks to it, and it's not one thing, one letter here, one letter there, and then they change it, and it's just too hard to keep up. Please, if you move forward, I'm publicly demanding the removal of Mr. Gustavo Velasquez from this process. He continues to completely fail at training his staff as established by State Auditor
Ms.
Report
Ruby?
2024-109.
Thank you for your comment. I'm sorry, but you've reached your 2-minute allocation, and we need to move on to our next public commenter, but thank you. Okay, moving
Okay
on.
with the
Moving on, we have Norma Amazkua. Please unmute your mic and go ahead with your comment.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, very well. Yes, my name is Norma Mesqua, and I'm a new developer, and I wanted to inquire more on the TA assistance and how we can, or I can apply for that assistance. I have 19 acres that I would like to build low-income homes, and we are located in the lower desert of Riverside County, and it's trying to navigate, kind of like what everybody was saying in the beginning. We're trying to navigate how to get this assistance to get this moving forward. I've been trying to do this for the last 3 years. So if there's any links that somebody can send me or websites that I can do more research on my own so that I can get more knowledge as to how I can get this TA assistance to build on this 19 acres for low-income housing, that'd be wonderful. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comment. If there's anyone else who would like to make a comment? Oh, we have a in-person. Please go ahead.
One second, I just wanted to respond that the website that we have up for the HDFC will have contact information, and as we build this out, there will be more information available. So I believe that's part of the, is there a website specifically?
There is already an HDFC website, and we will be building it out with more information. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Jenna Abbott from the California Council for Affordable Housing. It's nice to see you all here. I wanted to welcome you, Mr. Klein, on behalf of the members from the California Council for Affordable Housing. It's nice to see this all being done out in the open, and we really appreciate the process and the opportunity to comment. So we're looking forward to working with the committee, and if there are things we can do to help you or any of you, we're always here to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenna.
Okay, if any other members of the public would like to make a comment, please raise your hand or come forward here in the room. Okay, seeing none at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Courtney. Thank you all for your comments, really appreciate it. Moving to item 4, it is an action item for the discussion, recommendation, and possible action to approve our timeline recommendations for consolidated application and aligned compliance monitoring. I'll invite Christina Moon, our Deputy Secretary of Housing Finance for BCSH, to speak. Welcome, Christina.
Thank you. Hello, Executive Committee members. Item 4 presents final recommendations on the timeline for consolidated application process and aligned compliance monitoring that were presented and discussed at last month's committee meeting. I want to note that the recommendations have one small update since last month in light of the committee's discussion and updates from staff. As Director Klein already mentioned, there's a minor update to the timeline where we clarify we now anticipate releasing the first round of draft guidelines for public comment in early August rather than late July that we had discussed last month, and then releasing the second draft in October instead of September. Overall, the final guideline adoption is still slated for December of this year, so the latter part of the timeline remains the same. All other content remains the same as well. So we recommend that the executive committee adopt these recommendations, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Committee members?
There's one thing that I just wanted to ask you for clarification. In the governor's proposal in the trailer bill call for for a 50% set aside of the bond cap for HDFC awards. And looking at this timeline, I just wanted to make this clarification because when I talk to developers and others in the industry, the concern has always come up about this November 1 date where CIDLAC will have the opportunity to revert any unused bonds to the committee, unused from the decisions of HDFC award set aside. And as I look at this timeline, we are not, if this proposal were to be approved, there is no 2027 bonds that would be used, right? Because this, if the awards happen in January, no, the awards would happen applications are due in April of 2027, awards in August of 2027, you're not in a situation where you can determine any bonds that would match these awards until 2028. So nothing in 2027. Is that correct?
Partially. So the way that we lay it out here, it doesn't go as deeply into the bond cap cadence. We see 2027 as a transition year. So 2026 is business as usual. 2027 is when we're starting up the HDFC subsidy rounds that will reflect the consolidated guidelines that we've been talking about. In parallel, there is an outstanding pipeline of projects that have already secured subsidy, and they might just need to go get their bonds and credits. For example, some of the ASIC Round 10 projects, some of the MHP GAP NOFA projects that are going to get awards this year, they would go straight to get their bonds and credits, and that would come out of HDFC's bond cap allocation because if the TBL were to move forward, if the budget proposal were to move forward, because those are sort of the HDFC type projects, right? They already have HCD subsidy and they're really just moving forward to use their bonds and credits. There is probably in the first round of HDFC subsidy, there might be a few projects that just need a top off and then could close in 2027. They could still go against that bond cap allocation under HDFC. But really, the most of the new HDFC awards would be a look forward to 2028. So in terms of that kind of November question, once we head into 2028, we're going to be looking at the following year's bond allocation. So we should have more clarity on demand and awards earlier in the year than November. And it's really, that is just like kind of the final deadline to, state that amount used, but really it's going to be figured out sooner.
Okay, perfect. That perfect clarification. Thank you.
Director Serge?
Yeah, first of all, thank you. I know this tracks a lot of what we talked about last meeting, and having worked on with the 519 working group and the AB 2006 working group, I think this really is a great way of implementing some of those recommendations. I am interested in the aligned compliance monitoring and how that moves forward as we roll forward, because I think there's a lot of value to be gained in that over the coming years. But as you mentioned in the memo here, that's looking a little further out when HDFC starts really, when those projects start converting to permanent. So looking forward to continuing that work as we move forward.
Thank you.
Just a quick question. So I appreciate, the draft timeline, assuming it feels both ambitious and exactly where we need to be going. If time begins to slip, if there are changes that need to occur for the timeline both this year and next, how would that be communicated either to the committee or to the public and stakeholders about that? Because I think part of it is these are our best guesses in some ways, but also they give us the goalpost to work within. But I'm curious about your process for anything that might change around the timeline.
Definitely. We're going to go over calendar next, but we did add another meeting because we wanted to make sure there's enough touch points throughout the rest of this year to get your direction and also share publicly progress and milestones and kind of feedback loops with the public. In parallel, there will be ongoing engagement with various partners. 519 will continue to inform this work. So I think there will be different avenues for updates and input as we move forward. But, officially, there will still be a kind of likely agendized updates for you all moving forward.
Great. And then, so the 519 working group is certainly informing the one-stop shop, seeing all the things. Will it sunset eventually? Will the work become a component of HDFC's work beyond its planning phases or implementation? Can you tell us a little bit about that process?
Yeah, 519 started before we did, right? So HDFC was sort of this idea, but we hadn't really formalized or created HDFC. So they definitely did a lot of that groundwork and thinking that informed us where we are today. There is specific work they have to do. They have to prepare recommendations and submit them to the legislature. They have another round in July and then final in January 1st. So there is still kind of specific work for 519 to do. That being said, it's basically driving towards the same work that we are doing, and it's inclusive of the Treasurer's Office as well. So I see them as very parallel, informing each other, and once that works essentially sunsets at the end of 2026, because their kind of last homework is due in January, then I think everything else would kind of be continuing under HDFC in coordination with the Treasurer's Office.
Great. That's really helpful. I think that'll be, there's been a lot of conversation about 519 in its precursor to HDFC, and so I think it's just important for the public to know that they are similar, not exactly the same, but that there are elements that will continue under HDFC.
Yeah, and I would just add, something that with Director Klein we'll continue exploring is how do we keep that momentum and touch point with all the, various expertise that we've tapped through our 519 work group. There's just a lot of great thinking that's emerged, so we want to make sure we maintain that access and continue with that input moving forward.
Excellent. Any other comments?
Maybe one more.
Please.
Because I know the meeting calendar is the next item, but I'm just trying to make sure I understand the meetings later in the year where most of the public comment will focus on that final adoption of the guidelines in December. Have you been able to kind of just cross-reference? It could start, or the comment could start as early as the September meeting, right? when we have, 'cause
I believe that would be the first substantial amount of public comment on guidelines would be in your September meeting.
September and we have we have a December meeting, well, this proposed, again, this is the next item on the agenda, but the 8th, and it's the same month that we are expected, according to this timeline, to adopt the final guide.
Right.
So anywhere, big time to comment on the
All of fall.
guidelines from September to.
That's right.
So we have,
Yep.
okay, so it's a good amount of meetings, 4 meetings, where we'll have plenty of feedback from the public on the guidelines.
Great. All right, anything else? All right, thank you. We will now open it up for public comment. Each speaker will have up to 2 minutes to speak on this item. And as I said before, please avoid repeating comments. If you hear your sentiments reflected by a previous speaker, just agree with that speaker's comments. Courtney, is there anyone who would like to make public comment on this item?
Certainly, and I would just like to remind everyone to please limit your comments to the specific agenda item that was just discussed. There will be a portion at the end of the meeting for general comment. And with that, if there's anyone in the room that would like to make a comment, please line up at the microphone stand. And if you're participating remotely and would like to make a comment, please raise your hand virtually. Okay, we will move to our remote public speaker, Norma. If you would please unmute your mic and go ahead with your comment.
Yes, thank you again for meeting and allowing me to speak. I failed to ask a question based on the funds. Will there be, or are there any for like mobile home parks, rehabilitating them or startup?
We don't know.
According to
I'm sorry, did I lose
We
everyone?
typically, the committee members will not be responding with answers to questions, but we do take note of it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Very well. Thank you so much.
Okay, are there any other members of the public who would like to comment on this agenda item? There's no further comment at this time.
Great, thank you, Courtney. I think we need a motion on this item, since it is an action item.
I will move approval.
I'll second that.
Fantastic. Courtney, you want to call the roll?
Chair Moss,
Aye.
Director Sertich,
Yes.
and Director Velasquez?
Yes.
Resolution 2602 is approved.
Excellent, thank you so much. It's our first one.
Someone that worked on it.
What the audience say? No. Okay. Excellent. All right. Moving then to our next item, item 5, for discussion, recommendation, and possible action to approve and adopt the proposed HDFC Executive Committee meeting calendar for 2026. Christina, this is your item again.
Okay, item 5 is the final 2026 meeting calendar for the Executive Committee. Since we reviewed last month, we added, as I mentioned, a November meeting date in case it's needed. As we discussed in earlier items, there's a lot of work to do this year, and we seek to set up the committee to give the necessary direction and hear public comment for that work. So we recommend approving and posting this calendar on the HDFC webpage so that the public knows the committee schedule.
Excellent. Director Velasquez, you were sort of toggling between this item and the previous item. Any comments from the committee? Questions?
Well, Ms. Moon clarified my question earlier, so it's good.
All right. So we have an extra meeting added, and this will be posted on the HDFC website for the public to prepare. Great. I believe that this can function as a consent action.
Secretary,
Yes.
still public comment.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. Thank you. We will now move to public comment.
Let her finish.
It's teamwork. It's teamwork. Each speaker will have up to 2 minutes to speak on this item, item 5. And again, please limit your comments to original comments. If you hear your comment already made, just co-sign on the speaker before you, please. Courtney, is there any public comment on this item?
Certainly, if any members of the public would like to comment on this item, line up at the microphone here in person, or please raise your virtual hand. Okay, if Yvette would like to make her comment, please unmute your mic.
Yes, hello, Yvette Villa here again. So really quickly, I just wanted to state that any comments, questions, or suggestions that I have are that of my own and do not represent any board or commission that I represent. In my capacity as a, I guess as a contractor or as a member of the public, I just wanted to say that please feel free to reach out or I can provide my information. I'd be more than happy to assist in any questions or data that you guys may need. I know for a fact that my work directly intersects with everything, with all the agenda items. And again, I just want to thank you guys for all your guys' hard work. And I hope that we can continue to communicate. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to make a comment? None at this time.
All right, great, thank you. So I believe that this is a consent action item. So we don't need to do an individual roll call?
That's correct.
Excellent. All right, so this passes and we'll go ahead and adopt.
You can ask if there's any objection.
Any objections?
No.
Thank you. Anything else? Got it, okay, good. All right, motion passes. Excellent, thank you so much, Christina, appreciate it. All right, moving then to item 6, other committee matters. I believe we sort of set this at our last meeting. If there are future agenda items that members want to propose, any additional committee matters that need to be discussed, now is the time.
No, I think that at the last meeting, I made a comment about when we start reviewing guidelines and accepting comments on the guidelines, it will be great to have a presentation / update on the progress that the state is making in creating housing at different income levels, just a general overview of how we are making progress, in what areas we're making more, in what areas we're making less. We do at HCD collect all of the data from local jurisdictions through the annual progress reports. Just an overview, I think will inform well the committee and others on whether these guidelines, are making sense from the perspective of what the data is showing.
And so you want staff to bring back some of those recommendations?
I think that would be good to have an informational item on the progress that we're making in building housing through the housing policy development team at HCD. I can certainly prepare for that, but I just wanted the committee to agree with the recommendation that that's an important overview.
Great. All right, and then we did talk about, in our last meeting, policy items that are relevant to the work of HDFC that could be both informational to the committee as well as to the public. I do think, Director Klein, it's been helpful to hear your perspective around priorities of what we need to focus on in the next 100 days. But if there are policy issues that need to be, that are tangentially or connected to the work, helping us to understand when is going to be a time when we can hear about those things relative to the urgency that our more specific priorities may have. I don't want those lost. So I think it'll be helpful to hear the staff's perspective moving forward on how we will have time to discuss some of the related policy areas that are going to affect our ability to deliver housing faster and cheaper in California. All right, so if there are no additional comments from the committee, we'd like to open this item up for public comment also. Each speaker, of course, will have 2 minutes, as I said before, and please keep your your comments to unique comments. If you hear someone say your comment, please just agree with the speaker before you. Courtney, is there any public comment on this item?
If you would like to make a comment on this item, please come to the microphone stand here in person or raise your hand virtually. Okay, we do have a comment from Ruby Turalva. Please go ahead and unmute your mic. Ruby, you can unmute your mic and begin your comment. Okay, I think we might be having some technical difficulties, but we are going to be moving to public comment in our next item, so maybe we can pick up your comment then. And there's no other comments at this time.
Great. Moving then to item 7, which is public comment. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address the executive committee on matters within the executive committee's authority. We are now opening up that item, 2 minutes to speak. And again, no repeats.
Okay. Once again, if you would like to make a comment, please come forward here in person or raise your hand virtually. I'm not seeing any at this time.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for your participation in our meeting today. We are adjourned.